You're listening to Heroes in the Moment. What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And today we're finally reviewing Echo.
Baby, we're back.
I know, it's been a bit. Obviously, this is the second one back, but it's been a minute. But we're excited to be back in the stew.
We're just on a little hiatus.
A little hiatus again. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's a busy time of year, especially for me.
Busy
I'm
time of
finishing up
year.
my school, so
Michael
I'm
and I
done-
have been busy buying each other Valentine's Day gifts.
That's true.
Roses,
We've been making that-
chocolates.
we can't reveal all our
Dude,
secrets.
I'm sorry, bro.
Can't
I
reveal
shouldn't
all our
have said that.
secrets.
Yo, can we cut that?
cut that real quick. Editors, you know what to do.
Yeah.
We got you.
But I got you some good.
All right, but today we're going into Echo finally, the 5-episode full of Echo. They released it all at once. We're going to go in, we're going to review it like we normally do, a season review recap, shortest of the Marvel shows thus far.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it. So before we get into it and give you our thoughts, our interest, everything, it's been a couple weeks since Echo came out. So we're going to give you a brief recap
Okay,
just in case like you forgot anything about Echo. And then we'll give you your thoughts. So this is completely unbiased, completely nothing like that. This is just purely recap.
Here's what happens.
And then we'll give a thought. So the show begins with the first episode, Shafa. And in this episode, it follows, we see, it's pretty much a recap of Hawkeye
yeah.
and the events prior to that.
And
So it's
plays
pretty
in
much
with that.
recap of Hawkeye and then flows into the new story of Echo, of where she's at and going back to her hometown in Oklahoma is what Shafa follows, and also showing with Kingpin that he survived the gunshot.
Yeah.
And then you had Loic.
Crazy.
Is it Loic or Loak?
Listen, man, I really don't know how to say anyone's
don't know,
names.
but I'm
I know
gonna
how to
say
say
Loic.
Bonnie.
Bonnie. I knew that one.
I know that one.
Maya. I know
Maya.
that one. But Loic, I think that's the second episode's title. And this one starts off with a past sequence of the Alabama, I believe, in that era of AD, of the early, before the explorers and expeditions came in. And then it brings into her Oklahoma heritage. It shows a lot of her past and kind of builds into the past and like what she went through, her family dynamic, that sort of thing. Kingpin did not make an appearance in this one, and just kind of showing like Kingpin has his mark in kind of running this town. But she's kind of, this is where she grew up. She's coming back home. She's kind of wanting to establish herself as the next Kingpin in a way in this episode. And then you had Tucolo, which was the third episode of the series, which brings us a little bit more perspective. I think it had, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be getting this confused with the next episode, but like I think Bonnie and her finally meet in this episode, and they finally get together, and then I think it was this one or maybe the next one where they had the in the skating rink they get, I think it's the next one.
I think it's
Skating
episode
rink
4
was
they
the
hang her
hostage,
up.
was the hostage situation, and then Kingpin's return was in the fourth one as well. Oh, Tucolo I think showed like some of the past scenes of Kingpin, a little bit more of that, like what they went through
when she was a kid.
when she was a kid, and how he was kind of that uncle figure to her in her life, trained her up, and that sort of thing as well. And then Teola was the one with the ice rink, or not the ice rink, but the skating rink. And then also it did go back and forth more with Kingpin, showing the backstories there, the punching scene, the ice cream truck, all of that was happening here.
Crazy.
And then the finale ends with Maya, to where it kind of the accumulation of the story, to where she goes up against Kingpin returns and goes up against the stuff, trying to get them out of their city in Oklahoma, and it finishes there with Kingpin beating him out. So that was kind of a recap of the episodes. Really brief, really familiar. Like I said, I forgot some stuff, but I'm sure we'll remember as we go through our things. So just initial thoughts. What we're going to do in this episode, we're going to do like a movie review. We're going to go through our characters. We're going to go through our pros and our cons, the end credit scene, and then I will rate it 1 through 10. But just initial thoughts of the show. Nathan, you want to start us out?
Yeah. Ooh. Where
do we begin?
Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I see why Marvel decided to drop all these episodes at once, right? I feel like even early on, Marvel itself knew, hey, no one's going to be watching this from episode to episode, week to week. I don't think anyone's going to care.
I think,
and they were right.
Yeah, and I think the best way I would put it is, I think the trailer they released for Echo was potentially, and I think probably, Marvel's most, I guess, wrongful trailer to us.
It was misleading.
It was super misleading. That's the word I'm looking for.
Very misleading.
It was probably their most misleading trailer I've seen.
Yeah.
It was, the trailer was, and I will say it was phenomenal. The trailer was great.
It looked like a movie.
It did.
The
It
trailer
hyped up
did,
the show. It looks great. And then when everything great about this show happened in the trailer after watching it, that was a huge misconception. That was very unfortunate.
I know.
In looking at it, and I think that's the best way I can see it. Yes, it did have some good things, and we'll mention that, but overall, I was very disappointed.
I know,
especially what the trailer gave us.
Yeah, let me echo that. Like you said, I was extremely disappointed too, because like you said, initially we didn't have expectations.
Yeah,
and then we get all the news like, hey, Daredevil, the shows, all this stuff's getting canonized. These characters that we know and love, they're coming back.
Right?
We're like, okay, it's a spinoff, really of a spinoff show.
Essentially,
so,
yeah.
The fact that we even had hopes to begin with, I say, was very good marketing on Marvel's part.
Oh yeah.
But as I was watching the show, dude, like ultimately, I was bored.
I was. I believe,
I didn't care.
The best I could say is the first episode of the show was the best, in my opinion. Would you agree?
I would agree.
I think the first episode was really good. I thought, I was like, okay, I'm interested in the show. Obviously, Jeremy Renner was in it. Obviously, he's from Hawkeye, but he was in it, so that was cool. Kingpin, those backstories showing those, the father, all of that. The beginning of the episode showing like their past,
the Native Americans,
that Native American heritage aspect,
which I thought was weird.
Yes, that beginning, and we'll talk about that, but that beginning was super obscure. But that episode itself was good. I thought Shafa was good, but then it just progressively, I would say like each episode gets worse. I think that's,
I was disgusted by the finale.
I think the finale was definitely the worst, and I think that it just literally each episode got worse and worse. I really do think that.
I'm with you.
I absolutely think that, because I thought Shafa was like, okay, really good high, and then it just goes down really quickly, unfortunately, with that. So let's get into our characters, and then we'll just discuss it as we go along. So obviously our first one we have to talk about is Maya Echo herself, and I think the actress did a great job. I think she was great in the role. Obviously, she is a deaf actress, so in doing that, I think that was good. I think she is a good, choice to play Maya. But I feel like the action scenes, and I'll go to this part with Maya, were good, but not enough. I think there was 3, maybe 4 action scenes in the entirety of the show, and when the show was marketed as action, as a little bit of gore, a little bit that Marvel didn't do.
Yeah.
And literally the only gory parts we got, or the only TVMA worthy parts we got, were literally in the trailer.
I know.
And that was also unfortunate, which I'm going into more cons. But with her, I think the fight sequences just were so lacking that they were good, but they were so short, and we didn't get enough with her. And I think there's just so much more to explore.
Yeah. I think I might have to disagree with you on this one here. To be honest, I mean, I don't know sign language. I'm not deaf, so I can't speak, great on this topic. But I didn't find her character to be that interesting at all.
Yeah.
As I was doing my research and just looking through social media, some comments, which is not a great place to always do that. But all the comments were like, when you're deaf, when you do sign language, like a really big part of that is you have to communicate with your facial expressions too.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Your facial expressions make up a ton. If you're not able to talk and all that stuff. So just the fact that she has this just utter deadpan face like the entire show. Like, I don't know about you, but it's boring, and I don't know. It kind of makes me think to kind of Bucky a little bit. Honestly, Bucky's a little bit different, but they're both like these kind of disabled heroes, right? Whereas Maya, she kind of blames everyone else for her problems. You see Bucky owning up to mistakes and trying to get better, and he's written a lot better. I mean, you watch Winter Soldier, and I'm just glazing on this movie right now. But Sebastian Stan does a phenomenal job acting through his face, especially through his eyes, because he's wearing a mask. It's through his eyes. I got none of that.
I get that
from Maya's actress.
It was kind of that bland one face.
Like I said, if that's what they're going for, then so be it. But I don't think that was a good choice. Like, if this is a character you're giving us, and this is the character that you've wrote, and you're staying true to that, at least make it true to the people, who are deaf, who do use sign language.
It could be that this is what they were going for with the character. They wanted it to be that kind of that faceless expression because of what she's went through. But I don't know. But I do agree with those points. She was kind of, just kind of there,
kind of bland.
It was.
I didn't feel like emotion, like really anything.
It was that kind of lacking there of emotion, to where I feel like a lot of the show, of where it lacked, was the relationship between Maya and Kingpin. That should have been the focal point of the show, to where it wasn't, unfortunately. And that's what everybody thought going in. It would be that. And it wasn't that. And to kind of pivot over to our next character, Kingpin, I mean, that focal point was missing. But to go with Kingpin himself, Vincent D'Onofrio, again, what can I say? I love him.
He always does a great job.
He does a great job, and I feel like this interpretation of Kingpin was better than the Hawkeye's interpretation.
I agree.
will say that.
Yeah.
I think every scene he's in, he obviously stole the show, and I think he was great. And they're obviously building up towards something greater with his character, which I think is awesome, which we'll talk about with the end credit scene later. But with Kingpin, he was just the absolute, like, every single scene he was in, like I said, I just wanted more of him. And he wasn't in the show very much. Like, this show, yes, I understand it's Echo's show, but honestly, if they would have marketed it and it would have been more of Kingpin's show, I think it would have been better.
I know.
And had that more focus on him and their relationship.
Or like he's the 1B character, right? Half, maybe 60% of the plot is about Echo, but the other 40-50% is Kingpin,
exactly,
and his own evil ways, trying to work his way back to her.
Right.
So she's running, he's working, and they meet up in the middle.
Exactly. And I think of like the Better Call Saul dynamic with Saul Goodman and then Mike.
Yeah.
I think that their dynamic in that show is, you could tell, like, yes, Saul's your main character, but Mike's the B protagonist, right? Yeah. He has his own story, and they kind of work hand in hand together. And I think that if they would have gone that route with Maya and Kingpin, it would have been so much more compelling in the show. And they just kind of fumbled that very highly.
I mean, especially because, he's coming over from Daredevil.
Yes.
It's been canonized. Yeah. Everyone knows who he is versus, Maya, where a lot of people don't know,
right.
who even
some
the character
people might
Echo
not have
is.
watched Hawkeye, but I would imagine if you're watching Echo, goodness gracious.
I know. If you're watching Echo, Hawkeye, you would have had to watch Hawkeye.
10 times better
it has
than
Jeremy
Echo.
Renner as an
and it has Jeremy Renner and has Haley Steinfeld. So, I mean, like, obviously, and Florence Pugh as well.
Pugh.
I mean, honestly, the more I think about Hawkeye, I would rather watch it than this. But
that's not saying too much.
It's not. But I mean, Hawkeye's not horrible. But
no, it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's like 6-7 range.
I'd say yeah.
But with this, we'll see how it goes. And then Kingpin, like I said, it needed more.
I agree.
So let's move on to our next character, Bonnie. And Bonnie, I actually kind of liked the character Bonnie.
Yeah.
But the problem was, it's like, she wasn't in it. And I feel like to have such a emotional contact of being cousins with Maya and having that relationship, and I like the relationship, especially in the first episode, establishing that, and then her being taken away, and then the emotional, like, I was emotional. I was like, oh, wow, that's super sad. Like, tearing those girls apart that were such close as cousins. And then Bonnie, having this love for Maya, and she just seemed to be that genuine character in the show. And I actually appreciated Bonnie in the show, but I honestly think she could have been in the show more.
I know. Honestly, I think this is weird, but I think she could have been either more, or I think they could have cut her out completely.
Yeah.
Like, at the same time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
That's how I was feeling.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like her character wasn't that necessary, but at the same time,
but she was good when she was in it.
Right. It's one of those things, is that it should have been written more towards to where she was a necessity of the show.
Yeah.
To whereas she was written, like you said, not necessary.
Yeah.
So that's
pointing out that good side, from your main character.
Right,
but we didn't get to see too much of that, and she's not in it a ton.
No, not at all. Not at all. So to move on to Henry, who is the owner of the skate shop. And I mean, again, he was necessary to the show.
Yeah.
But he was just there.
To be honest, I don't know. I wasn't really feeling that whole plot. I wasn't really feeling the chemistry between him and Maya. And honestly, most times he was on screen, I was a little bored.
And to be fair, every scene he was in, he was bored. But he literally, I think, out of every character, he got the second most amount of screen time. He had a ton of screen time, and I don't get it at all. Like, what did he do? Like, literally,
like you're going down a dark path.
Exactly.
Dude, we can see that.
I know. He's like,
we know she is.
He's like, you're going to be the next Kingpin, and it's just like Queenpin. But by the way, that line made me aside the point. Yeah. But like every time, like literally every scene, he was like, no, you can't do this. You don't do that. That's not good. And then later being like, oh yeah, you good. You and me, all it just was bland. It wasn't necessary. I've seen this character a million times, and every single time it's not a fun character.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like shows and movies, pieces of media, they usually don't need that character. I mean, that I think it's just downplaying, the audience. I think we can tell clearly what's going on, who's on what path, what the good moral decisions are. We don't need a character whose sole purpose is just there to say, this is bad. Now, if you're talking like a good, like father figure, someone to mentor, that's completely different than what he was, though.
Yeah, he wasn't it at all.
He wasn't.
He was not it. And that brings us to our next character, which is Chula, Maya's grandmother, who I think was one of the worst parts of the show. And anytime that you have an older lady, and nothing against this, but anytime, like, she's probably what, 60s, 70s, and she gets a fight scene in the final episode. What?
When I saw that, I was thinking of she's a wannabe Blue Beetle's grandma from Blue Beetle. That's all I was thinking.
But Blue Beetle's grandma was like goated, man, with the saw.
She had a minigun.
She had a minigun, and she was just mauling him down with the braids.
She's 75 years old with a minigun in a tunnel. Yeah.
But then,
are you kidding me?
But with Chula, she's calling the power of the ancestors to fight like combat.
No, dude.
Like
what is going on?
What were they thinking? Like, sure, I get her having being like this conflict between her and Maya and the fact of her father. I get that. That I didn't dislike that.
It wasn't bad, yeah.
But I disliked her for like kicking her out. But the fact that she was fighting Kingpin's goons, man, at the end with her abilities that are what? Like, what are you thinking?
You can't do that.
Like,
and I'll get to this later, like in the cons, but screw it, dude. Like, another thing they do bad in here is just like the power leveling. Like, everyone fights like they're a freaking superhero.
Like,
you're like, who is a superhero?
Like with the Disney, that's one thing. It's like Marvel since Endgame, Spider-Man: Far From Home. After that, has been like every character can do something.
Every character is like they would legitimately like kill 100 dudes with their eyes closed.
Exactly.
Even the random goons.
And they overpower everybody for no reason.
Especially the grandma.
Like, what? Like, why do you give powers to these people that don't deserve or need powers?
Yeah. And that felt like She-Hulk, honestly. The finale of that.
I feel like it feels like She-Hulk. It felt like the finale of Secret Invasion. It felt like
Secret Invasion.
It felt like like all of these different finales. And I think of like a lot of these shows, they start out good, and then they just fumble so hard. Like, I think every single show I've seen, She-Hulk started out great. Secret Invasion started out great. Echo started out really good.
What are these Marvel writers doing? What are they on,
like,
dude?
I don't understand.
What are they smoking?
What is their goal? Like, to bring together these group of people, family, abilities, power, and then see everybody fight. Like, nobody wants
really
that.
is just Blue Beetle now that I'm thinking about it.
It kind of is.
Especially in the end.
Man, it's just so unfortunate. So let's move on. And I kind of combine these two characters a little bit, but Scully, you had, which was kind of her grandfather-esque guy.
I liked Scully.
I vibed with Scully. I think he built her the new leg.
He was they could have cut out Henry entirely and had Scully.
He should have been that role.
He was a better mentor.
Yep.
He's older. You know, he's been through the ringer before. I don't understand why they need another younger character.
And the actor was good. Yeah. And I think Scully was definitely a highlight of the show. And he made more sense in this play, I think, than Henry did.
He's there for her, he's giving
inspiring,
her new prosthetics.
He gives good advice. He's that, grandfather role that everybody needs. I really think that Scully's character was underutilized and also did not get enough screen time.
I agree. But at least he didn't have a minigun.
That's true.
If he did have a minigun, it would have been a little more acceptable.
But that stinks.
I liked him. He was honestly... Besides the main two, actually no. Besides Kingpin, he might have been my favorite. It's not even my, isn't they, dude?
Nah.
I like Scully.
All right, but now we got to talk about Biscuits. All right, old Biscuits. All right, I mean, he was comedic relief, obviously. I mean, some of the scenes, I think the truck scene and the train scene was really cool. I'll give that a heads up. I think him going off road and helping her out with everything she needed.
He was just George Lopez in this movie.
Exactly, he was George Lopez's character, and I feel like he's one of those guys that. When he first appeared, he didn't make sense. I feel like when he first came in, I was like, who is this guy? He's like, cousin, Maya. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And then I figured that would be it with him. But then he's in every episode doing, other stuff and being like her guy in the chair, essentially, in a way.
Yeah.
In that kind of a role. And I get why they did it, because every show's got that, have that comedic relief character. But Biscuits, man. I mean, he's probably my third favorite.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, his character wasn't needed. There obviously needs to be some comedy in there.
Right.
He didn't really change the story at all. I'm glad he didn't have more screen time. Yeah. I think that would have been a little too infringing.
Kind of looked like Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like Zach Galifianakis.
I didn't think about that. Honestly, dude, he hasn't been in a Marvel movie, right?
No,
he would make a fire Marvel movie.
But who would he be?
Honestly, an older Deadpool.
Kill that.
Dude, he would be excellent. Dude. Imagine him breaking the third.
Imagine him as a villain. Maybe he show his acting chops.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen his acting chops like that.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, now we got to talk about Daredevil. So Daredevil got what, 2 minutes of screen time?
They did, my boy.
Dirty, man.
Dirty.
They robbed, and he gave it to us in the first episode.
You told me he ran away from Maya.
Like, you telling me that
he ran away?
He gave us 2 minutes of screen time in the first episode.
This man does not have fear.
He does
Isn't
not.
his nickname the Man Without Fear or something?
I don't think he was afraid when he banded her. I think it was more so just like, I don't need you. You kind of ruined my operation. I gotta go do something else.
Yeah,
now.
I was like, kick her butt to the ground.
Exactly.
That's how I was feeling.
Exactly, and it's just like the fact that he wasn't in it as much. I'm glad he was, because honestly, if he wasn't, man,
but that was misleading. What we were talking about earlier.
So misleading.
I thought he was gonna be in for more than that.
I 100%. Everybody did. Everybody thought he'd be in it like as a secondary character, at least. Like, maybe not every episode, but in like one or two.
He could have been the mentor, him and Scully.
Oh yeah, and I thought he'd come back. Like, I just thought it was just such a robbery with Daredevil, and on top of many other robberies.
I mean, shout out Charlie Cox. He did good with what he was given.
Did. He always does.
You know,
we'll just have to be excited for his new show, which I hear good things about.
I'm very excited for that.
I hear good things about it, so I'm excited. All right, let's get into our pros if we have any. Well, I have a few.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. Number one, obviously, Kingpin, right? I feel like we can both say that across the board. Kingpin's fantastic. Vincent D'Onofrio kills it once again in this role. I have the only thing I have to say about him is not his fault, but the writing surrounding him and where he was placed in the show was not right. But everything else, Kingpin was better.
I agree. He was my number one pro, and he was also my only pro. There's little tiny things I liked, but I didn't think they were big enough to consider it a full pro.
Okay, that's fair enough. And mine, I have the concept of the show. Now, this is an interesting one.
The concept.
Okay. Because I think the concept of having Echo in this role, and I'll just say what I would have done with this show.
Okay.
Obviously I had Echo, and I would have brought her in and kind of did that recap that episode 1 kind of did, but I would have had a lot more of a focus between her and her relationship with Kingpin, how the built up of her training. I would have done it like kind of like the Arrow motif, going back and forth every episode.
Yeah.
And
that would have been nice.
I think that would have fit, going back and forth between Kingpin and her training up, because I think the younger actress they cast in Echo was really good.
Yeah.
I think she looked
just like
great. She was really
impressed.
good. So I think going back and forth is what I would have done. I would have more of a keen focus on her in the realm of New York City, running things is kind of like, I guess, would be like a henchman, but not like one of your lead henchmen of Kingpin's operations and doing that kind of thing. And then, maybe trying to build up her own stamina or something like that is how I would have kind of based it. But the concept, I would say, of this show in general, like the idea of, the her and Kingpin's relationship, throwing in that Native American heritage, which would have been really cool if they would have done it and then like had shown the past scenes, but not really have that much impact, but just kind of show how her heritage has impacted her. I think that would have been a lot cooler of a show, and I think it potentially could have done a lot better as that way. And obviously I can go in more details on how it would do it, but we don't have enough time for that. But I would say the concept of it was good. Just not.
That sounds more like a con than a pro.
No.
You're like the concept, but here's what I'm gonna change about everything.
Exactly. The concept though is the pro, because the idea of the show is good.
Okay,
it's just the rest of it's a con.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So let's get to our cons. You want to start us off?
Yeah. I'm gonna start with my first con, and we haven't talked about this yet, but I really feel like the writers of the show, the showrunners, they didn't do any homework at all. One thing that really irked me, and this was smaller, but I think it's like episode 4 or 5 when Kingpin is trying to make up with Maya. It's pretty clear. He says that, he doesn't know sign language. He's never learned it, which I felt like it completely contradicted his character. Like he's loved this girl like his daughter for all these years.
Yeah.
That's been a primary form of communication. And he told me he never once learned, to communicate that with her. I think back in the Daredevil show, and I'm referencing it because it was canonized, but in Daredevil, he plays dumb with his business associates. One of them is Chinese, one of them is Japanese, and they always speak their languages in front of him, and he pretends he's dumb, right? But the whole time, he had memorized them like late at night, so he knew everything that was going on. So like, we're just that on the mind, and the fact that they established this is his love, he will do anything for his daughter. You're telling me just like these little things that he can't even really communicate with her, which he literally does sign language in the Hawkeye show with her. It doesn't make any sense. And then plus on top of that, one of the main showrunners, like we heard like a month ago, she was like, yeah, we didn't even think about how Daredevil and Maya were gonna communicate until like the other day. Like, one is blind and the other one is mute and deaf. What do you mean you didn't think about that?
How did you not think about that at all? That's key components
it just feels
of the characters.
Like they had no idea the characters that they were using.
Exactly.
Like the themes, you know, the characters. They feel like different versions every time we see them, especially 100%, now.
I agree. It's ridiculous on how everything was executed. Like you said, Kingpin would have learned sign language.
I know.
He's not the one that just let that go.
He truly loves, you know?
Oh, yeah, and you can see that. And that was
twisted
great.
form.
I love that aspect of the show, the fact that he really did love her, and that showing of that was really great, but so wrongly executed.
They just cut their own writing short.
They did.
Like, why would you do that if you're a writer? Everything should be, like, supporting the ideas and the themes of the show that you've already created.
Right. And the whole focus on like how Daredevil and Echo would have communicated, like what?
Like, what do you mean you never thought about that?
In that scene, I would have had him like maybe showing his sonar abilities of her like seeing her doing this language,
he could
trying to feel it or something of that capacity, but they just don't.
I know, dude. I was disappointed by that.
I know. My first con, and this is a major one. Why do you spend the whole dang show in Oklahoma? Okay, I figured an episode.
Yeah,
cool. Mm-hmm. You know, going back to her roots, kind of picking up the lost pieces that she needs, and then I figured she'd hightail it back to New York. That's where I thought the show would be taking place. New York, Kingpin, all of that whole interactive, how Kingpin's empire is, how it impacts New York. How is she going to take that down? How is she going to attempt to do that? But instead, it shows it in daggum Oklahoma. Like, why does he even have
whole time?
Why does he even have a factory in Oklahoma?
Yeah,
like,
why?
That doesn't make sense.
Who goes to Oklahoma?
Nobody goes to Oklahoma. Like, no offense to Oklahoma.
Leonardo DiCaprio in Killers of the Flower Moon.
But like, you know, seriously, like, I did not care about seeing her village. I didn't care about seeing where she came from.
That's not what
aside from an episode. Why would you spend the whole episode here? Plus, the plot with that was not good at all. Like you had the potential of the plot, like I said, the concept of her going, you know, maybe going back to her roots, picking up those pieces with Bonnie, whatever, family, kind of, you know, fixing what she needed to. This could have been like an episode 4 or episode 3, and then coming back to, you know, fight against Kingpin again, you know, kind of rebuilding herself. Would have been a much cooler plot than spending the whole show out.
I know, it's an absolute shame, Michael, to balance off that we did not get more scenes, or really any scenes, of just Kingpin with his crew.
Exactly.
Doing Kingpin stuff.
That's what we want. And this show that should have had such a high focus on Kingpin.
On organized crime.
On him being the Kingpin, the leader, the gangster of all of this. And the fact that we did not get that.
It's terrible. It really is.
How can you make a show about Echo, the niece of Kingpin, and not have Kingpin in this capacity?
It really feels like some of the writers are like, yeah, we got these cool characters, but how can we make this kind of uninteresting as possible?
As uninteresting as possible. I know. They did. They did. They really, really did. And you go ahead with your next con.
So, dude, man, this one just hurts to talk about. Dude, my next con was just the final fight scene. I mean, yes. All right. So, I mean, and rightfully so. When we watch Endgame, banger movie, right? A great conclusion. But when that final scene comes, right, where it's all the ladies and they team up, it's so clear, you know, what Disney's trying to do, you know?
Yep.
All the ladies team up. It's female Avengers. All right. So, you know, rightfully so, it received criticism. I cannot believe that the show ended with Maya marching with these Native American women who tap into their Native American powers, and defeat Kingpin and the goons with the power of
and at the end, when Kingpin's like, "What did you do to me?" and they literally, like, apparently the whole basis was like just showing him how to love. What? What is that? How can you do that to this character?
What is that?
Like, what do you mean?
What is that?
Showing him how to love? Like, and then them being like, Maya, you're an echo of all these people. It's like,
that's a good name.
I'll keep that.
That's a good name.
I'll keep that. Like, what are you actually doing?
When they're all marching together and they're tapping into their powers, I'm like...
And then you have like the whole caca moment with the grandma, and then the whole caca moment with Bonnie, and they're all coming together and they're like, yeah, I'm tough now, and punching these guys that are like trained professional henchmen.
Yeah, trained goons,
Like, are you kidding me?
I was like, what is this? I'm like, respectfully, this is an organized crew you're talking about with Kingpin. This man is not losing.
And they're putting him on his knees and doing that whole
removing him. It felt like Thanos from Infinity War, right?
Yeah.
With what's her name, Mantis.
Right. Yeah. That was sick.
Yeah.
But then you have
in this capacity.
Oh my!
He's like, my pain has been. No need for therapy.
I am good now.
Been healed. I no longer want to kill.
I no longer want to kill. I want to be better.
Yeah, be better.
Be stronger.
Kill some anyway.
It's like so bad.
They did it dirty.
So dirty.
They did him dirty in Hawkeye during the last scene. They really did.
They did.
They did him absolutely dirty. Awesome, man. The whole fact that Maya shoots him point blank in the face with a gun, and then he doesn't even his eye is okay.
What?
He takes off the patch and he has an actual eye.
I'm fine there. It's just bloodshot.
That's not stopping him, but this group of Native American women is. I'm not hating, but this. It really just felt like race baiting. Like it really did, Mm-hmm. I'm a regular white dude, but I'm looking through all these comments from these from these people with Native American backgrounds, and they're like, dude, what the heck are we watching here? They are not doing this right. And I know Miss Marvel didn't receive many of those complaints. I feel like that was the show that did it well. But man, it was just a bunch of bull crap.
I mean, honestly, Nathan, are you telling me that you're not down with the power of love? Is that what you're telling me right now?
We gotta teach Kingpin how to love again.
We gotta teach him how it feels, how it love, how not to be bad.
Whereas the whole point of the show was he had a twisted love. Yes, it was twisted, but it was a real, genuine love, for his daughter. So the whole touching his forehead and the
purifying
whole yellow power. Stop. Come on, stop. So those themes don't fit in with
not
this.
Not at all.
This market as TVMA. What?
And that's a great transition to my next con. TVMA where? Where was it TVMA? Yeah. How was it TVMA?
I saw one guy get shot, but there's no blood or nothing.
Listen, behind a bar. Every episode had a description. This content, whatever, is too much for young, or whatever audiences. And I'm like, one scene, a dude got shot, you show some blood. Okay, that was PG-13 level blood anyway.
Yeah.
And then the whole guy with the scene with the eyes, yes, I get that. That was a little bit out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad Marvel's going that route a little bit.
Yeah.
But I still don't see how this couldn't have been a PG-13 rated show.
I know.
How was that TVMA?
I don't understand.
There was no cuss words.
It feels like they just went TVMA just to uphold the same rating that Daredevil had.
Yeah.
I feel like they were... Honestly, dude, I feel like they're trying to bamboozle people like me, who expect that level of maturity.
Yep. I feel like that's 100%. They were trying to get to those audiences, and when they try to, and then they felt but why would you attempt to get to those audiences if you know you're just going to get rated
and these people, we're 20, 30, 40 years old. We're not stupid. We realize what they're doing.
Exactly.
They're trying to pull that demographic from the Netflix shows, place them in here, but then you're not matching that same level of content and or writing and or characters and or every part of the show.
It's just horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, that part definitely sucks. We've talked about most of my cons, but another one of my cons was just I've said it before, but it was just completely boring and uninteresting. This is not something that I would have a desire to watch again. I really feel like they dropped the ball on Maya. Like you said, they should have done a lot more with their past, going back and forth, kind of like the Arrow does. I felt no sort of emotional connection with her. Some of that was due to writing. Some of that I just feel like she was just deadpan the entire time. I feel like I said, they didn't do their homework, but it was born mainly because of her. I didn't feel a connection with the Native American storyline. I think they could have done that better. I think you see a lot better story like that in Wakanda Forever. To be honest, I didn't think they did that perfectly. Well. Yeah, but they did it a lot better than what we see here in this case. But it just kind of became a chore, Michael. Like watching it,
and with that,
not that I have a short attention span.
Well, how many times did you find yourself on your phone in that episode?
A lot.
Me too. And it's not because of the short attention span. It's because they lost our attention.
I know.
There's a difference between short attention span and then losing attention. And that's what this show did. Yeah. It lost attention. It was boring. It was bland. It was colorless, tasteless, had no essence. And I know. It missed a lot.
It just didn't feel authentic.
It wasn't captivating.
At all.
It wasn't unique. It wasn't none of that. I mean, it was unique, but not in a good way. Yeah.
Blue Beetle level.
Blue Beetle level bad. And then my next con, and this is kind of my final con, even though I could say a lot more about this show, but I'll kind of end it here, is just the Native American plot. I think the whole idea of it, like I said earlier, is great. It's potentially cool. It's cool to see that Native American heritage. Some of the shots, the way this episode was shot, I'll put that as a pro. The shooting was good, but it didn't make sense. The whole first scene of the show when they're rising out of the pits or whatever, and they're holding the cage. What was that?
Well, there's like a spiritual, magical element that, first of all, I don't know why they incorporated that into it.
It should be purely street level. Yeah, is what this should have been. Save your more mystical stuff for the Doctor Strange realm.
For Iron Fist.
Yeah,
that would have fit better in the more like Eastern cultures.
Absolutely. But not here.
Not here. I mean,
sure, maybe those stories you could have told, but I think if they would have told these stories and had been shown like through cave drawings instead of like in actuality, that would have been much.
That would have been really cool.
It'd been much like if you started out the show having it be narrated by somebody and just being like, "This is how it began," and then showing it through cave drawings. Beautiful. That would have been a huge
with like
homage.
A crackling of a fire lighting up. Woo!
That would have been a
like
huge
Ice
homage.
Age.
Huge homage to like your hunting, gathering, Native American culture, your original initial culture. Huge. It would have been greatly done. And then going into the show, and then the only Native American heritage we get from that is their own modern. And I think that would have been a lot more enticing, interesting, and integral to the plot than versus what we received.
I agree. It's like you said, it's complete just contradiction. Like you said, it should stay street level and not mystical. And the mystical elements did not fit in. Not only did they not fit in, but they weren't done well. It might have been a different case if they were executed well, but they weren't.
It was just straight up stupid.
I promise, we're not just here to hate on it.
We're
bringing valid criticism.
We are. I mean, genuinely, we're not just here like saying that this show is horrible.
We don't have an agenda coming in.
We don't at all, because like we said, if you think we have an agenda, go listen to our trailer reaction.
Facts, yeah. I mean, pull up the receipts.
Because the trailer reaction, we were hyping the show up. We were like, okay, this potentially may be a banger.
Yeah.
But now, it turned.
Yeah, it's no longer a banger. No. Can confirm.
So let's talk about the end credit scene. The end credit scene was actually cool. Yeah. I will admit that. And that was Kingpin flying home in his private jet and him looking at the screen and realizing the need for a mayor in New York City.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. And bringing Kingpin as the mayor, good comics, good idea. Mm-hmm. Bring him in as the street level threat villain. Have him be the main villain of Spider-Man 4. I think would be a good idea.
Yeah.
I think having be the accumulation, Daredevil Born Again, kind of include all those aspects and just kind of do that street level kind of process there would be super cool. So I'm super excited for that.
I'm really excited for that. Like you said, I think it adds a ton of new elements. Not only now does he have the support of the streets, but he'll have the support of all the politicians. And we saw that in the Daredevil show too a lot. But it would be cool to see kind of those two different sides of him. Actually, you know what? He might not even have those two sides. Like, oh, he's a fake politician, but then he's a real crime lord.
Yeah.
He's authentic about everything that he does, even though he's evil. And that's why he's so attractive as a villain. So I think for the future of Daredevil and Spider-Man, that just makes him that much more of a bigger and powerful villain that he has, the government really behind him.
Absolutely.
So I like it a lot. I like that development.
I agree. And we'll see how it goes. All right. So let's rate it 1 through 10.
Is it time to rank it?
It's time to rank it. It's time.
Oh.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first on this one.
All right.
Been kind of been bouncing back between two numbers all day.
Okay.
But honestly, I think I'm gonna err on the lower side here, considering just what we thought the show was gonna be, and just how bad they blundered it. I really feel like this might be a bottom. I think it might be a bottom 2 Disney Plus show.
I'll wait till mine.
She-Hulk is definitely there, but I think there's several in contention. But I don't think it's crazy to say that this might be the second worst. I did kind of feel like my time was wasted watching this. With all that settled, I think I'm gonna settle for a 5. And I think that might be a little too generous.
Okay.
So I'm going with a 5.
Okay. All right. For my rating, I agree. I think this is a bottom 2 Disney Plus show. I think She-Hulk is the bottom. I will say that right now. She-Hulk is the bottom.
Controversial.
I do think Echo as a whole is better than Thor: Love and Thunder, but I will say I think it's bottom 3 total MCU projects all time.
Bottom 3.
I think it's bottom 3 out of all MCU projects we've ever had.
That She-Hulk
and Thor: Love and Thunder, and then Echo. I really do.
Wow.
I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. It's Michael, not good.
I am surprised. A 3?
It's not good.
Wow.
I mean, this show, if I was rating it just off the first episode, I'd probably say like 6-7 range.
Yeah,
for sure. Like maybe first 3 episodes, I might would say that, but maybe not. That's generous. But the first episode was good, and then it kind of just went downhill so quickly.
I know.
I did not like much anything. The only reason it's got that 3 is because of Kingpin and the couple good Daredevil aspects and the New York action scenes that we got, and that's the only reason I'm being so generous with the 3.
So this might be the only time you've like had a rank lower than me, but like more than one.
More than one?
Yeah. Maybe I'll stick with my 5, we'll see, if I had to think about it, I probably might move that down to a 4. About that rounds out to a 4.
And I was back and forth between a 3 and a 4, but the more I thought about it, I was like, it's a 3.
Yeah. I mean, there's just 3. No real redeeming qualities about this. I just don't understand like why these shows, they're just not wake-up calls to Marvel. Like you see these shows and how they're performing.
I honestly think it is now, because I think Echo was the last official project done before Marvel started to make adjustments under the writing strike. After this is everything from now on coming now will be after new. Writing strike.
Yeah.
And I think Deadpool 3, and Deadpool 3 has a lot riding on it. And I think Deadpool 3
has a whole
it has a whole
riding
lot.
On it.
And honestly, to be honest, I think Deadpool 3 not only has Marvel on its back, but I think it has the whole superhero genre on its back.
It's Warner Brothers ain't doing nothing.
No, not yet. So I do think Deadpool 3 has a lot riding on it, but I do think that it will do it. Yeah. I think it'll accomplish it, and I think it'll bring us back to the map and everything from this on. And obviously Marvel's definitely slowing down, because the only Marvel project releasing this year is Deadpool.
I know. It's about time. And people are excited for it.
And everyone is excited for it.
It's weird to say that, but that's kind of a rare thing now for their projects.
It is super rare. And obviously we're gonna hype up Deadpool 3 over on our trailer, so go listen to that.
Yeah, go check that out, man.
But I do think I have utmost confidence, but we need it. We need that Deadpool. So
facts. Save us.
Save us,
Ryan
Marvel,
Reynolds.
save the superhero genre. You can do it.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Our podcast is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and check that out. Also, feel free to check out our social media. Yeah. We have an Instagram account, and it's @HeroesInTheMoment.
And we just want to thank y'all for listening, and as always, we love you 3000.